Hey, welcome on back to Music Monday. Oops, gotta get this microphone closer here. Disaster strikes. We haven't even started yet. Oh no. Hey, but anyway, thanks for joining in. I thought today we'd do an old-time favorite of mine, Southern Cross by Crosby, Stills, and Nash, penned by Stills himself. A lot of sailing terms at the beginning. I'm not a sailor, nor have I been to the South Pacific, but talked to my sailor friends and did a little bit of research. So hopefully I can elucidate some of the concepts there. All right, here we go. Got out of town on a boat for the Southern Islands, sailing a reach before a following sea. We were making for the trades on the outside, on a downhill run towards Papeete. Off the wind on this heading line, the Marquesas. She got 80 feet of waterline, nice and making waves. In a noisy bar in Avalon, I tried to call you, but on a midnight watch I realized why twice you ran away. Think about how many times I have fallen. The spirits are using me and your voice is calling. Why heaven brought you and me, then I'd be forgotten. And I have been around the world looking for that woman, girl, who knows love can endure, and you know it will. All right, there's a lot there. I didn't want to break it up because it seems like it's all kind of connected together. So got out of town on a boat for the Southern Islands. So we're talking about some Southern Islands, obviously, and since Crosby, Stills, and Nash is from California, let's assume that they're going there, and then because they're leaving from there, and then because all the references there, like French Polynesia and Marquesas and things like that, it's assumed that they're sailing in the South Pacific. So down on above the Southern Island, sailing a reach before a following sea. Now, reach is when the wind is coming kind of perpendicular to the sailboat, this, and sort of listed over, so it's sailing this way. So we're going to assume, again, in California, that they're catching the easterly winds coming first, so that then that would make them probably heading south if they're going to go to the Southern Islands. So they're kind of heading down past Mexico towards Argentina. Sailing, and then following sea, you get your current. You get the wind coming from the side, but the current behind. And I'll talk maybe a little bit more about symbolism of that possibly in a second. Before following sea, we were making for the trades on the outside, and so outside is another sailing term about where the wind is in relationship to the sails. So, and they're talking about making for the trade winds, which is fascinating, I guess. You know, and I'd studied, I guess, more Atlantic, I think, trade winds back in history class, but I didn't know much about the Pacific. But if we're looking at the sort of Pacific Ocean sort of behind me, and so over here is sort of Asia, and the United States is more this way. So the northern hemisphere winds come down, and then when we hit the southern hemisphere winds coming up, the north winds sort of scoot and go east, while the southern winds go this way. And so we have sort of a counterclockwise motion in the northern hemisphere and a counterclockwise motion going in the southern hemisphere. But it's kind of cool because you've got winds going both ways, kind of like a highway. And if you just sail her up across this little, and I guess it's less than 100 miles, you can catch sort of back winds behind you. So that's kind of cool. So I guess so they're making for the trades on the outside, and then a downhill run towards Papeete Bay over in French Polynesia. So heading south to catch, to get out of the easterly winds and catch the westerly winds and go all the way over there. So that's that first part. There's a lot of sailing terms and a lot of geography. Off the wind on this heading line, the Marquesas, we already talked about that. We got 80 feet of waterline, nicely making waves. And I guess if the boat is sort of heeled up on edge and it's catching a lot of wind, it sort of puts you get the more waterline you get in the water, then the faster the boat is. So I guess that term is them cranking along. They're making some hay, making some speed. Nice making waves in a noisy bar in Avalon. I tried to call you. And we're going to assume that this is of course, there's Avalons everywhere, but since they left California, most likely probably that sort of that last-ditch effort before getting too far, Avalon and the Catalinas. I think so. A noisy bar, I tried to call you, but on midnight watch, I realized. So he's on the midnight watching for, I don't know, whales, tornadoes, something like that. While he's sailing, I suppose you need someone on deck. I realized why twice she ran away. I think that's pretty obvious. She left twice. Or ran away from didn't want to deal with it. I don't know. What, twice you ran away? Think about how many times I have fallen. Mistakes he's made. Spirits are using me, and your voice is calling. That spirit are using me. I always get the line from King Lear. We are flies to the wanton gods that kill us for our sport. One of those things where the gods and the universe is just sort of toying with us and making mistakes when things go bad. We're making mistakes when things go bad. Spirits are using me. Again, I have to keep going back. So we got spirits are using me, and your voice is calling. Still can't quite forget her. What heaven brought you and me cannot be forgotten. I guess too, Stills said in an interview he wrote this song after his divorce, and it's also written that it was sort of a contentious divorce. A lot of it the custody of their son. So what heaven brought you and me cannot be forgotten. So I think despite sort of any of the bad blood between them, he's still happy that without that relationship, he wouldn't have had this son. Heaven brought you and me, then I'd be forgotten. There we get that. And I've been around the world, probably sailing, I guess, looking for that woman girl, which always cracks me up. How is it a woman girl? But I wonder, too, do you get the sense that you want someone who's mature and can handle relationships and can handle the challenges, but still has that sort of girl-like, sense of fun, sense of adventure, that fun aspect of it, too. So maybe that's kind of the woman-girl thing. For the who knows love can endure, which hasn't happened to him clearly in the past, and it will. Right, so there's the sort of the literal breakdown of that. But, as an English teacher, and I always think about metaphor, too, I can't help but wonder if you have some different things. So, as to following sea. And I guess following seas can be dangerous sometimes. You get a lot of current pushing you, and then, what will happen is it'll make the boat sort of rock up and then drive the nose under a wave. Part of it could be good because you've got some current pushing you, not fighting against the current, but too much of it can wreck you. So when you're looking at what behind you can be dangerous or can be helpful depending on your perspective or how you handle it. So that might be something interesting to look at that for. We're making for the trades on the outside on a downhill run. So sometimes you have to go through those difficult things, and eventually you'll get into that downhill run. You get into the groove where things will be a lot easier for you. And the rest of that kind of we already talked about. So cool. All right, then we get into the second verse. When you see the Southern Cross for the first time, you understand now why you came this way. 'Cause the truth you might be running from is so small, but it's as big as the promise of the coming day. So I'm sailing for tomorrow, my dreams are a-dying, and my love is an anchor tied to you, tied with a silver chain. I have my ship, and all the flags are flying. She is all that I have left, and music is her name. Think about. And then we get back into that pre-chorus again. So when you see the Southern Cross for the first time, you understand now why you came this way. So it's interesting too about the Southern Cross. Clearly, it's used for navigation at times. So that aspect of he's trying to find his way. Maybe lost before and trying to reposition and recenter himself after this divorce. So when you see the Southern Cross for the first time, you understand why you came this way. And you can't see the Southern Cross from the Northern Hemisphere. So sometimes it's this change in perspective is important before you can see something, which I think is always kind of a cool part of that line. Because the truth you might be running from is so small, but it's as big as the promise of the coming day. And I wonder, it reminds me of that line from Indigo Girls, the hardest to learn was the least complicated. What are those things in our life that are so simple, but it takes us so long to actually learn them? And I wonder if because we want to overcomplicate things and we think, well, it can't be that simple, when sometimes it's sort of the Occam's razor, the most simple solution is the easiest one. So that's what I think about that one, yeah. As big as the promise of the coming day. The promise of the coming. Now I forgot where I am. That is it. And that's why you came this way. 'Cause truth you might be running from is so small, but it's as big as a promise. The promise of the coming day. So I'm sailing for tomorrow. My dreams are dying. Looking for the future because the dreams you had in the past just didn't work out. And my love is an anchor tied to you, tied to the silver chain. We see that bittersweet part of it, that love that he had, but ultimately it didn't work out. So it sort of it weighed him down, even though it's kind of some sweetness left in it too. So that's that silver chain. I have my ship and all the flags are flying. Well, as a ship, she's all that I have left. And I wonder if, too, that goes back to the contentious divorce where he just lost a lot of things or gave a lot of things. And so now he's just got the ship. And music is her name. And I think he actually did name his ship Music. And then you get back to the chorus. Think about how many times I have fallen. The spirits are using me and your voice is calling. Why heaven brought you and me, then I'd be forgotten. And I have been around the world looking for that woman, girl, who knows love can endure, and you know it will, and you know it will. So we cheated and we lied and we tested, and we never failed to fail. It was the easiest thing to do. You will survive being bested. Somebody fine will come along to help me forget about loving you. In the Southern Cross, in the Southern Cross, in the Southern Cross. So we cheated and we lied and we tested. Pretty obvious, and we never failed to fail. It was the easiest thing to do. I guess that relationship is sort of doomed from the beginning. I wonder how one of those relationships that people know are doomed, but they get in them anyway because they just can't resist, I guess. I don't know. Never failed to fail. We used the thing to do. And then it's interesting here, we have the bittersweetness part of it. Now he's sort of just like kissing her off. Now, you will survive being bested. Adios, my friend, you're on your own. Somebody fine will come along to help me forget about loving you. And again, looking back towards the future again in the Southern Cross. All right, so there we go. Some Crosby, Stills, and Nash on this Monday. So thanks again for checking in. I certainly do appreciate it. Love to hear your perspective, your comments in the comments below. And until next time, happy Music Monday. Stay safe, stay healthy, do what you do. Thanks.